Bonjourino, internet peeps. Good morning, I guess. I don't know. This is a different kind of video, a video that has yet to be put on my channel. Though to be fair, this is the 4th video, so we don't really have too much of a precedence, but welcome! This is my first non-science video. Apologies for that. I've kind of been getting what college kids would term getting fucked over by my classes right now. I'm 3 weeks into my quarter, and I am dead on the inside and the outside. But I didn't want that to stop me from posting something, and my brain has been too much of mush for science, because that's all I do in my major. So instead, I put together this little video about something that I kind of been wanting to do for like a little bit, which is a narrative character template video, which I guess I'll get into explaining that because it's weird. So just a clarification, this is not like a mechanical how to build your character, like this is how you choose a race and your stats and blah blah blah. No, there's enough videos about that on the internet. I'm not getting into that. Go fucking look it up somewhere else. It ain't gonna be talked about here unless we're talking about very specific builds, but that ain't this video. So remember, this is narrative character creation, setting up a document that you can use and your DM can use about your character, and also just like some general advice that I use when I set up a character. How do I make my own characters? I'll probably have like an example or two of characters that I have made in the past that I have very much enjoyed playing or currently play or about to play. I haven't decided which characters, so I'm gonna surprise myself by the end of this video about what characters I use. Yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so what do I mean by narrative character template? It's not a template in the way that like you imagine a template of like, this is how you make a character backstory. No, it's rather how to create the document, or like how should you create the document that you use and you give to your DM that includes like the information about your character, not the mechanical stuff, that's your character sheet, but like your like character document. You understand what I mean? If you play any kind of long form campaign, your DM will probably be like, hey, what's your backstory? And you give them a document that has bullet points or paragraphs full of information. But I have played in quite a few campaigns, and I've DM'd a few campaigns, and over the past like 3-4 years or so. And so I've kind of been perfecting my own character documents, like how do I build character documents, as my DMs will know, especially my friend Pen&Quinn, who is editing this video. I've played in multiple campaigns that she has run, and I pretty much have the same format for all of my character documents that I give her. So I wanted to pass upon my knowledge, essentially offer a way to do it that I think is a good way. I think it's a very descriptive way of doing it. It's very in-depth. So if you do like a one-shot or something, I don't think you necessarily need this kind of thing, but if you are in a long-form campaign or are planning on creating a new character for a long-form campaign, I think having a document that encapsulates all this kind of stuff is important, not just for you, but also for your DM's sake. First things first, just some general character advice that I would give to anybody thinking about creating a character, or my players like creating characters and like for my own campaigns, and advice that I use myself. Before you even like begin creating a character, you need to have like an idea for one, not just like a mechanical idea, not just like, oh, I want to play a zealot barbarian, but rather like you need a narrative idea. Like, I want to play a a character that struggles with their relationship with their god and prays to their god by calling them very weird slang and has this very odd casual relationship with them, which causes a lot of disconnect with them. That was a really long character idea, but like, you get the idea. You don't want to just base that was weird. You don't want to just like base your ideas off of like a mechanical aspect of it. I always like my favorite subclasses and my favorite like races and classes in general all inherently involve like some narrative aspect to it, to the character. So like a subclass that I can just, I look at it and I can come up with an idea for a narrative for it. Like, for example, one of the characters that I currently play is a Dhampir light cleric in a world where the sun is dark. And a lot of that, it doesn't make sense. A Dhampir half vampire who worships the sun in a world where the sun is dark. It's kind of a joke, but like inherently that breeds a lot of interesting aspects that you can bring into your story, into your narrative of your character. So the first one is make sure you have a narrative idea, like just legitimately a narrative idea that connects your mechanics to a story. Second piece of advice, kind of teased it a little bit in the first one, the best characters whether it be in movies, in a book series, in a TV show, in video games, in D&D, they're all tied in some way, like directly to the setting they are in. They play active roles in creating the setting, or they played active roles in creating the setting that they're in, and the setting played an active role in shaping who they are. So that means you can't just make a character in isolation, right? So you can have an idea for a character, like say, like I want to play a wild magic sorcerer who struggles with having her magic and this curse upon her. That's a really cool idea for a character. But if it's not in a setting, if it's not some way tying to a setting, like it's not as interesting as it could be. For example, let's go back to like my Dhampir cleric, right? Her whole thing is being a Dhampir, half vampire, who worships the sun in a world where the sun is dark. So already the religion is kind of weak because the sun just doesn't fucking exist. But the idea that a vampire, somebody who is inherently against the sun, why would they be worshipping the sun, especially in a world where the sun is dark? And the fact that she likes the light so much, even when there is no light, even when that light, if it was there, would harm her, is inherently an interesting story and ties the two together. To get farther into her backstory a little bit, this is a legitimate character I play, by the way. Like, she is accidentally part of a cult that she kind of got brought into in like a really low part of her life. And because of that, because of the cult, they've convinced her that like bringing the sun back is this like holy idea, that this is a mission that only she can do, and even though that it would harm her in the end, like she needs to do it. And so you can see how like everything's tied together, from like the physical environmental world to the political social environment, all connects back to the character that I made. And that's what makes her partially an interesting character, is because she's so connected to the world. She wouldn't work in a different world. It just wouldn't make sense. If I plucked her out of the world that she's in and put her in like Faerun or Exandria, she wouldn't be the same character. And I think those are the kinds of characters that are the most interesting and that people should strive for. So advice number 2, connect it to the setting that you're in. And finally, this last piece of advice is gonna sound pretty obvious, but I think it needs to be stated anyway, which is like, you wanna play a concept that's intriguing for you. And how you find that concept is in your own way. Personally, I find a lot of my favorite character concepts actually stem from, they start out as jokes. Like, I set out to make a very funny idea of a character. And that's probably because, like, deep down, I, like, love trolling people and joking around, and I'm, like, a big fan of, like irony and just, like, fucking with people. But usually I, like, repress my unbridled desire for chaos and destruction because, I have school and I must win, and most of the time in a system like this, you can't win with chaos. And I must win. Anyway, so a lot of my characters are pretty chaotic. For example, again, the vampire one that I mentioned earlier, that started as a joke. I was like, what if I had a vampire that worshipped the sun? Ooh. And now I got my trauma-induced cult victim. I then decided to make a character that, what if I played a character that talked like Gen Z and put all the Gen Z slang in one sentence and sounded like a Chad. And now I have a wild magic barbarian that people look at and then go, what the fuck is going on? Or another character that I played, which was, what if I played a healer that just wanted herbs to heal things. They just wanted herbs, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, they all started out as these, like, weird little joke things, some of them more serious than others, but they all, in the end, became very interesting characters, in my opinion, and characters that I really enjoyed playing, because they all stemmed from joy and happiness for me. I mean, that's not the same for everybody. Some people really like to delve deep into, you know, gritty, sad characters with, like, really, like, kind of, whose overall personality and, like way of viewing the world is a lot more dark. We're looking at you, Liam O'Brien, all your little emo boys, and that's okay. But, like, other people, like, enjoy making more jokey characters. Looking at you, Sam Riegel, and me, because I'm awesome. Sam Riegel's okay, I guess. But, like, so you gotta just find your, like, what kinds of characters really interest you, and go pursue those characters. As a side note to this, make sure you don't play characters that, like, make you feel bad out of game. I know, like, sometimes, like, the reason why I play such happy characters most of the time is because if I play sad characters all the time, I just become sad out of game and just really just, like, depressed, and I don't like that. I don't like that feeling. I like being happy. I like making people laugh. So I try to steer away from those characters and explore characters that are happier. That doesn't mean that they don't have trauma, or they don't have, like, interesting backstories or sad, tragic pasts. It just means that, in general, their personality tends to be a lot more upbeat. So yeah, let's get into the template I made for everybody. Alright, I'll probably have it showed up on screen, the character document that I made. I'll have to record that then or something. I don't know, maybe a picture. I don't know, I'll figure it out. But either way, character template. So at the top of it, I always start with the really basic stuff. So name, race, class, subclass, background, age. I added sexuality lately just because it's good for just, like, my own knowledge of the character and just, like, my DM's knowledge of my character, just cause. So yeah, I always list that basic stuff first, so that way I never have to go back and, like, reference my character sheet for that kind of stuff. I always just have it right there, and a lot of the times when I start out making a character, I start out here, and I make most of this, and then I go back and make my character sheet. So, do with that what you will. The second thing on the character sheet is themes to explore. I just actually recently added that to my character sheets. Usually, and, like, I don't add this one second to my character sheets. I actually go back and add it after I've written, like, my backstory or, like, most of my backstory and stuff like that. But I like to put it at the top, just so it's like quickly and easily referenceable. But the reason why I have this here is so like this is the space for you to list like the most important aspects of your story you want to explore, for your benefit and for your DM's benefit. If you want to explore romance in your story, this is the place to put it. If you want to explore certain aspects of your backstory or certain aspects of your character, this is the place to put it. Because like, if you don't put it, and if you don't talk to your DM about it, how will your DM know that you want to explore that part of your backstory? So this is like a really good place to like put like, say like, hey, I want to explore this part of my backstory, and this is why I think it would be really cool if we tried out these different things as part of it. And if you could incorporate that into the story, I would really like that. You can also use it as a way to like direct the story yourself. You may not have as much control over the story as your DM does, but you still have some control, so you can steer conversations and stuff toward it. So yeah, next section, appearance, pretty self-explanatory. Usually I take like a quick picture off the internet of like a drawing or something, put it here, add some descriptions. Most importantly, I list any identifying characteristics of my character, whether that be like tattoos, hair color, skin color, birthmarks, or scars, or really any iconic visuals of the character. So that way, you have a reference for it, but also your DM can be like, oh, people might recognize this facial tattoo, or people might recognize the fact that you just have strings attached to your limbs, or whatnot, you know? The next section is personality. Again, pretty self-explanatory, but like this shouldn't be like crazy long. Usually I actually make personality like last, which is like probably a bad thing. But this is just like a place for you to list out how your character generally acts. And if you have trouble, I would start out with like figuring out like who's the person they're closest to, what is their greatest fear, how do they speak, what are their like code of ethics, what is their morality and everything, how do they view the world. I think that's also, like getting that kind of stuff down, super important. And your DM may ask for stuff like that, like what is their greatest fear, what is their greatest dream, what is their goal. Like, those are kinds of things that your DM may want and may just ask you for anyway. And then we come to the most important section, the backstory section. A lot of people have different ways to do backstories. I'm gonna fair warn you guys right now, my DMs tend to like more backstory rather than less backstory, so we kind of have a competition going in my at least my international D&D groups about who can write the longest backstory. I am securely in first place with a 63-page backstory. Don't at me. Wasn't intentional. It just kind of happened. It's a story for another day. Maybe I'll post it. Maybe I'll explain it. It's a whole story. It's a whole thing. Anyway, moving on. The way I usually write backstories is I'll write bullet points for outlines. I'll talk it over with my DM, and then once I feel confident and comfortable with it, I'll go through and write paragraphs for it. I'm gonna warn you guys right now. Most of my backstories are not 57 pages or 63 pages or however long it is. Most of them are like maybe 2 to 4 pages at most. Yeah, so you get a bullet point outline, and then usually I divide it into like these little like subsections. So that way, like, you can go back and easily reference it, and your DM can go back and easily reference it in, like, different parts of your life and stuff. So, yeah, there's that. And then finally, the last part I have is important NPCs. Usually, I'll go through and I'll list, like, the key NPCs of their backstories with, like, relationships with the character, race, gender, age, description of their role in the world, description of their connection to the character, and then like for more important characters, I'll put list some personality traits of how I think they would act. This is super helpful, so incredibly helpful for your DM. I highly, 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 highly recommend doing it. If you don't want to do it for every NPC in your backstory, that's fine. But definitely, like, the most important NPCs in your backstory, like the villain of your backstory. Like, you should make one for this. Just because it just makes life easier for your DM. They have to do less work. I mean, they're still gonna have to do work, but they at least get a better idea of where to take that character. So there's that. And yeah, that's the character creation template. If you have anything else you want to add to it, I always add like maybe smaller sections to it. If they have other weird traits and stuff, I'll add like sections for that, but that isn't really consistent across my characters. These are like the things that I always have in my character documents, so here they are. Okay, I want to wrap up this video pretty fast because I've spent many minutes rambling and I feel bad about that. But you know, I want to end it with one last thing, which is probably the most important part of all this, of how to create a good narratively sound character, which is work with your DM. I can't give a bigger tip than that. Then sit down and just fucking talk to your DM. It doesn't have to be one conversation. It can be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just talk to your DM. Pick their mind about the world that you guys are in. Get their opinion on things. Ask them about, like, hey, are you interested in exploring this? Or do you think this would be something cool to explore? Because as much as you need to like your character, you need your DM to like your character almost more than you. Because after you hand them the document, the backstory that you give them, they are allowed to write and edit it however they want, right? And you want them to be invested in that. You want them to love it, to want to see drama and action and see your character succeed. You don't want your DM to hate your character and have them purposely fail because your character is a piece of shit. Or not even that it's a piece of shit, it's just that they don't like the narrative concepts in it. So sit down, talk with your DM. I have multiple hours long conversations with my DM and wonderful friend Pen&Quinn, who is editing this video, as we worked out whatever character I happened to be working on at that time. And like we've sit down and had whole like afternoon discussions about it, because we can, we have the time, and we're a bunch of like college students. But like, it didn't stop after I created the character and we started the campaign though. Like, we would be in the middle of the campaign and we would sit down and have discussions about my character and like my character's interactions with the plot or with the other characters, or we would talk about the other characters and stuff like that. And you know what? That made me love my characters more. So sit down, have a conversation with your DM, talk to your DM about these things, actively reach out to them if they're not reaching out to you. Say, hey, I want to talk about my character and throw around a few ideas to you, blah, 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 blah. Just do it. It's not hard. It's honestly super fun. Maybe it's just because I'm narcissistic and I love talking about myself, and D&D characters are essentially an extension of oneself, right? That I love talking about them because they're just like bits of our personalities stuffed into these fictional worlds that we get to manipulate and move around, right? And I'm a narcissistic bitch and I just fucking love talking about myself. But like, it just makes the character more fun. I just fucking do it. Just fucking do it. Just go talk to your DM. Please, just do it. Thanks for watching the video. You can find a link to the character template that I made down in the the description below. I'll put a link to it. I think I'll put a link to one of my past characters that I use, that I essentially use this template to make. I'll put it down there just so you can have an example of like how I use it. It's not perfect. This was probably one of the early characters that I used, that I created it on, but I think it's a pretty good example of like how I went about and did it. So thanks for watching, and if you like this content and want more, just, shout out down below in the comments. Peace.
Subscribe.